at these teams and what colors these casters decided on. So Gabby opting to go for purple here, matching the blazer with that Naganadel, a Grimmsnarl, which we know too well, an Indeedee, a Corviknight, and a Alolan Marowak, which is a little cheeky, as well as a Galarian Articuno.
Joe staying true to his name and building a team of exclusively brown Pokemon here, which consists of Trapinch, Landorus, Entei, Regirock, Hitmontop, and the Trevenant. So a lot of different options there, some nice coverage, and maybe some fun little tricks. I think both teams have something a little bit non-standard that we may not have seen, even in older formats as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what that Trapinch is going to do. There's all these big bad Pokemon and then this cute little Trapinch sitting there. So I'm excited to see what it's bringing to this team.
Arena Trap. I think what Joe's going to be trying to do with that one is find something that Gabby's a little bit uncomfortable with, a board position she's not great with, make sure that Trapinch is in so she can't be switching in and out as freely as she might like, and then of course being able to find a partner with it that can deal some big damage. But Gabby's got a lot of really big offensive options on her team as well. I think both trainers building really interesting teams considering the stipulations put upon them for team building.
All right, now that we got a little sneak peek into the teams, let's get further into it and get started with the match to see what pairings and what synergies these two casters are going to be bringing. Joe, going with that Regirock and Entei for the lead here, and on Gabby's side, that Indeedee paired next to that Naganadel.
Very different kind of styles of leads here from both trainers. Gabby, a little bit frailer, I think, with the Indeedee Naganadel, but the potential for really big damage, and of course, a little bit of terrain control as well. So that could be really important for her. But on the flip side, Joe's decided to go a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier maybe, and just a couple of Pokemon that can take a hit and, of course, fire back really, really effectively. So maybe Joe trying to sort of grow into this game and find those openings and weather the storm a little bit that Gabby may be trying to put down with this lead combination she's gone for.
Definitely two different types of styles for these leads, but one thing is for sure, the color combinations are absolutely fantastic. Very aesthetically pleasing leads in this color format here. So I'm excited to see if we're going to see a max on the first turn. We could see a little sneak peek on Gabby's end. That wasn't quite the plan, but Joe opting for a different route here, and we are going to be seeing that first turn max. And let's see what it is. That Regirock looking to deal some massive damage to the start.
That Regirock's going to be able to take a good few hits as well with the increased health there. Gabby looking to put down a lot of damage here as she starts kicking it off with the helping hand. Let's see if Joe can take these hits and fire back.
And again, it's going to fire off a big attack. Going for that Draco Meteor. Firing into the Entei with the helping hand. Is it going to be enough though? And it isn't. Entei holding on with a nice little chunk of HP here and able to cause some havoc. And havoc it is, going for the bulldoze, dropping the speed on Gabby's side, but more importantly, getting the weakness policy on that Regirock.
Now, Regirock's about to do some huge damage to a target of its choosing. No protects, no way to take a max move with ease here, and the targeting could be big for Joe. It's going to be the max Rockfall. Which way is it going?
That Indeedee, and that Indeedee having absolutely no chance here, taking off the board, and that Regirock getting the opportunity to set up Sandstorm as well. So definitely a very early lead on Joe's end, and I mean that Regirock is completely healthy, +2 attack. That's going to be really scary for Gabby to deal with.
Also, a lot of damage down from the bulldoze. I think it's fair to say that the Naganadel doesn't appreciate taking those very, very much at all. So certainly getting good damage down, a little bit of chip as well from the Sandstorm between turns. Certainly helpful, and I think Joe is going to want to push on, maybe try and find another knockout with the Regirock in this following turn. It's going to be really big. Entei, dangerously low, but the Naganadel may have to consider a switch. It's at -2 after that Draco Meteor. Doesn't have anything to kind of recover for that, so maybe Gabby's going to have to consider, not this turn, or maybe even the turn after, switching it out and being able to clean up the end game with it a little bit later on.
Yeah, Entei is certainly low, but being able to survive that first hit, let it do what it wanted to do with that bulldoze. Joe with all the power. The Grimmsnarl is going to be hitting the field here for that Indeedee, but definitely a little bit of a scary position. Grimmsnarl doesn't put too much pressure on besides setting the screens here, which we will see the reflect, but it's definitely a little passive, and the Naganadel not opting for a switch.
No, the Naganadel just staying in, maybe trying to play around a little bit. And now it's actually been bulldozed. It's slower than the Entei. So the Entei does get to land the Sacred Fire before getting knocked out by that Sludge Bomb. So Gabby leveling up the Pokemon count, but we've still got Regirock to move.
Yeah, the Pokemon count might be even, but I don't know if it will be after this Regirock gets the opportunity to be attacking. Going for that Max Knuckle, opts to go into the Grimmsnarl instead. It will get an attack boost, but the Grimmsnarl holding on with a healthy amount of damage after, a healthy amount of HP, sorry, after setting that Reflect up.
Yeah, I mean, they're both getting a little bit low, though, and Grimmsnarl's getting worn down by Sandstorm, getting worn down by the Burn. But Gabby leaving in that Naganadel, I think Joe maybe playing around that, thinking it was going to switch out and just targeting everything down towards that the Grimmsnarl slot just before it can try and set up everything. It's already got one screen. No reason it might not be able to set up another as well, as it's very well known to do.
Yeah, Gabby maybe not wanting to swap out to have the last Pokemon in the back take a massive hit. But it is that Corviknight, so never know. This is a little bit of a tricky one, so we'll have to see. But Landorus coming out on Joe's end, and I mean, I feel like we get to see the other form too often, but this one we don't get to see as much, so I'm excited to see what it's going to do.
No, we're not treated to the incarnate form of Landorus that often, but it does have some interesting tricks around it. The Life Orb and Sheer Force combination, very, very powerful. This Corviknight switch in, though, really big for Gabby as it eats up that Earth Power from the Landorus, and that means there's not going to be any damage going into that slot. A lot riding on this Regirock's last turn of Dynamax, I think.
Yeah, it opting to go for the Max Quake, not into the Naganadel slot, but instead the Grimmsnarl, looking to just pick up that KO there. But, I mean, this Corviknight, be interesting. Didn't take any damage coming in, and I mean, with the opportunity to go for Steel Spikes or Air Shapes or something could be big. And this Naganadel swapping in and out, and now has its special attack back, and now has its speed back. So, be interesting to see if it can offer any pressure here.
This Naganadel is going to have to put in a bit of a shift. Now it's got its speed recovered from that earlier bulldoze, and of course its special attack could be an important turn. And the Regirock is now no longer Dynamax as well, but getting a good amount of damage down out of those 3 turns, I think really, really important to see how that one goes. And you know, this Corviknight could become the focal point. It's the healthiest thing on Gabby's team, and of course she's not Dynamaxed yet either, so could be throwing a lot behind being able to kind of tidy up that way. I do get a sneak preview of what Gabby's up to, and it looks like the focal point is going to be really important here for Gabby.
Always love a Corviknight out on the field, especially a Dynamax one. And the ability to go for the Steel Spikes and raise the defense might fare well, especially in the face of a Regirock with all these attack boosts behind it. Just whether Corviknight can take it down before this Regirock does some massive damage back. But start off Naganadel going for that Air Slash into the Landorus, doing a little bit of chip, unfortunately taking more recoil on its own end as Landorus, not flinch, goes back for the Earth Power and just picks up that clean KO.
Yep, the Landorus finally manages to land the Earth Power on the Naganadel. Exactly what Joe wanted at the turn before, and it's an easy knockout. As said though, this Corviknight's going to be max steel spiking, and the Regirock doesn't appreciate that very much at all.
Definitely picking up a good amount of damage, all things considered. Does get the opportunity to go back with the Rock Slide, but that Steel Spike boost proving to be helpful in Corviknight living that quite comfortably, but it is still Corviknight against 3 Pokemon here.
The Corviknight's got a lot of work to do, but it's got 2 more turns of Dynamax. Didn't take all that much in the last turn. It'd be curious to see how many options the Landorus really has to try and fire back at it. I mean, it's an interesting typing, of course, being Steel Flying. Limits some of those options, avoids, of course, the super effective Earth Power that, you know, would, if it was just Steel, be able to get there. And Joe playing this one a little defensively, even though he's got the very, you know, advantageous Pokemon count. Landorus with an interesting move here, something we haven't seen on all of them, heading up for that Fly.
Super defensive. The Landorus looking to not take a hit at all. Regirock looking to minimize the damage. Gabby did target into the Regirock. Not really. The chip is just very minimal, but being able to get another defense boost is certainly appreciated against these 2 physical.
This Corviknight's still got a long way to go, though. I mean, really pushing on as best it can, making sure that every attack lands. This last one's going to be important. I mean, it is, of course, the final max move that this Corviknight's going to have access to, so it really needs to boost up its stats as best as possible. I'll be curious to see how much this Landorus does coming down with the Fly. Regirock trying to protect and not getting it this turn.
A Fly doing very, very minimal damage here. Life Orb doing more to the Landorus than it was able to deal. And this Max Steel Spike is going to come out. The Regirock, since it wasn't able to get that double protect, is going to go down. And we're finally going to see that last Pokemon that Joe's been hiding in the back.
Cool little interaction there for anyone at home. Of course, Sheer Force would usually remove the Life Orb damage, but Fly doesn't have a secondary effect like that, so not able to really take advantage of the boosts there. And like you said, probably more damage done from the Life Orb in return than it actually did to the Corviknight. We do see the last Pokemon from Joe, though, is that Trevenant. And this Corviknight's probably feeling pretty good. Even though it's not Dynamax anymore, could be in a great position to try and clean up this game and make a late sweep through Joe's team.
Landorus just hiding again, opting for that Fly, not wanting to go down, and Gabby did target into that slot, so not anything going to happen from that as the Trevenant gets the opportunity to start setting up here and going for that Leech Seed to be slowly leeching the health away from this Corviknight.
Yeah, putting a timer on the game is always an option when you've got a late Leech Seed Pokemon. We usually see something like Ferrothorn doing it in our normal games, but this is not a normal game. It's a caster showdown. And it's going to be Trevenant, which obviously has a weakness to Corviknight's flying type attacks. Could be a little bit of a concern there. And Landorus not connecting that Fly. No damage on this one as Corviknight may be able to just start forcing a really big lead out as Trevenant is immediately felled by that. This Corviknight has been putting in a shift.
Yeah, that was a huge Brave Bird there, taking a lot of recoil damage, but this Corviknight's still sitting pretty with 3 defense boosts. And I mean, what started off as a really rough beginning for Gabby here, I mean, all the tide has shifted as this Corviknight has just been bringing this game back, going for an Iron Hand, and cleans up the game, landing the critical hit to boost, and Gabby's going to take this one. And it's not what I expected off of the first turn here, but that Corviknight was just so well, like, piloted and executed there.
Joe got an early lead, but the Corviknight was able to sweep it up and clean it up for Gabby, so really well played. Even with a couple targeting mistakes, I don't think there was that enough sort of closing pressure from Joe to be able to tidy that one up. No real answers to the Corviknight, and something he's going to have to think about heading into game number 2 and being able to bounce back from that.
Especially with the Corviknight hiding in the back there and able to bring it out after Joe had already used his Dynamax. I mean, an early game Dynamax can offer so much pressure, but having it in the game for like the end is just proves to be so valuable. But let's get into this game 2, see if Joe can bring a Corviknight answer this time around, because I think he needs it.
He's going to have to find something in his team and maybe more from the Regirock, but we'll see when we head into the game.
All right, so let's see what these players are going to be leading with. Big lead adjustment here. Going with that Landorus, but paired next to the Hitmontop. A little bit of a switch up from Gabby as well. That Naganadel still coming out to play, but pair it next to the Grimmsnarl.
The different lead here from Gabby, I think, is reactive to how quickly the Indeedee went down. So maybe trying to play that a little bit differently. But the Naganadel still applies a whole lot of pressure. No Psychic Terrain, though, means this Hitmontop could be liable to throw out a Fake Out, but has to consider it very carefully because of the threat of the Psychic Terrain coming in. So certainly a bit of a thinker for Joe, even with that lead adjustment.
Yeah, getting to see from Gabby's perspective, we do see that is the same 4 Pokemon this time around, just in a little bit of a different order. I'm excited to see what is in the back of that Regirock or Entei's in the back for Joe here, but looks like Gabby opted for a swap, so we'll have to see how this plays out.
It's going to be an interesting turn 1 once again. I'm not sure if we're going to see the turn 1 Dynamax from Joe on this one, maybe respecting the potential Corviknight a little bit more, and that Corviknight's coming to play a whole lot earlier in this one.
Corviknight just wanting to get in on the action. Joe going for that Max yet again first turn, wanting to apply some early game pressure. I mean, he did get a pretty early lead last time around with that Max, so not too surprised. And I mean, this Landorus can be super, super dangerous depending on where it targeted this turn. I mean, that swap out into the Corviknight, it could be a really good turn here. Fake Out coming out into the Corviknight, and this Grimmsnarl just getting the opportunity to just be reducing whatever Joe wants to do here.
That's going to make these Landorus attacks a little bit harder. As the Landorus Max Quake heads towards what was the Naganadel, no damage. A fantastic switch there from Gabby into the Corviknight. I see Joe trying to double up into that slot, deal with the potential like Draco Meteor that came out in the last game, but Gabby making a fine switch and eating up that Max Quake, wasting a turn of Joe's Dynamax very, very early on.
Yeah, Grimmsnarl doesn't have to worry about slowing any of these Pokemon down if the Landorus can't even hit a move in the first place, but we are going to see it go for a Max Ooze, Helping Hand boosted nonetheless into the Grimmsnarl, and despite the Helping Hand only picking up just over half of the HP.
Light Screen really helpful there. Max Ooze based, of course, off Sludge Bomb, being able to take that after the Light Screen, and really kind of big play. Corviknight, speaking of big, getting even bigger with the bulk up, raising its attack and defense, trying to set up for another one of those fantastic sweeps like we saw in game number 1. But this time Grimmsnarl's going on the offensive. Not something we see all that often, but it does hurt the Hitmontop.
Yeah, the Spirit Break means a nice little coverage move, but it does get a lot of chip when necessary, and it's actually going to be switching the Hitmontop out as well. That eject button coming into play, so we get another peek of what Joe has brought, and it is going to be the Entei hitting the field.
The Entei in an interesting position. I'm not sure if this is exactly what he wanted. It does have access to Sacred Fire, which could be nice to try and deal with that Corviknight, get some more damage down than previous, but it's not going to be able to really get away with the Bulldoze shenanigans it did last time. So the Entei is going to have to be played a little bit differently in this one. It could be an important change-up for Joe, just being forced into that position, but Gabby committing to what worked so well for her in the previous game, I think.
Yeah, we're going to see that Big Bird come out to play. It has that defense boost. It has the attack boost. Having that turn to set up is just going to prove so nice, especially with both of its max moves allowing it to set up further. Is going to be really big here. The Grimmsnarl just looking to set up a little further as well, going for that Reflect while it still has the opportunity to, before this Landorus goes for the max boost to take it out.
Grimmsnarl has done its job though. It's set up both of the screens, and losing it probably not the worst thing for Gabby here. She's probably fine with it, as it's bought enough time to make sure that this Corviknight's got set up as just as she would have wanted for the kind of same end game but earlier from last time.
The Sacred Fire that could have worked from the Entei, unfortunately gonna miss. This Corviknight gets to respawn, firing off a big airstream into it. Not quite picking out the KO, but doing a lot of damage and getting a speed boost. That's a pretty big Sacred Fire miss there from Joe's end.
The Entei was in a perfect position to land that attack, get some big damage down, and try and slow down this Corviknight, but that miss, really, really brutal for him. Going to cause a lot of problems, I think. And Gabby revealing the fourth and final Pokemon, the Indeedee. We've already seen the Naganadel that's now in the back, and that Indeedee can provide just more than enough support for this Corviknight for the next couple turns.
Yeah, it didn't really get the opportunity to do too much the first time around, but definitely set up in a lot better position this time to really just kind of help out this Corviknight. And this Corviknight still has more max turns, as Joe's unfortunately all done with that Dynamax, and Landorus, I mean, was able to pick up the KO on the Grimmsnarl, but not really doing too much else.
No, it didn't get the huge value. Of course, that big Max Quake switcheroo from Gabby on turn 1, really limiting the options, but looks like both trainers firing off attacks. Another Sacred Fire miss on the Corviknight. The Entei is really not having a good day, and for its troubles is going to be knocked out by the Max Steel Spike. More stat boosts coming in for Gabby and her Corviknight.
That's absolutely devastating turn on Joe's end, hitting the Earth Power into the protected Indeedee, missing yet another Sacred Fire. That's a huge blow, and the Corviknight able to attack into the Entei, remove it from the field, remove a threat. This is like, I mean, this Corviknight's putting in work, and it's really just given the opportunity to roll with this match.
As Corviknight's in a really good position, it's so well set up, and I don't see, now the Entei's gone, any immediate threat to it. Of course, the Regirock could try, but we've seen defense boosts already from the bulk up, from the Steel Spike, and now Gabby's going to be committing everything to it, just helping hands and big attacks every single turn. Landorus does get to land an attack this time, though, the Earth Power, bringing Indeedee a little bit low, and we'll see how this Corviknight does against the Regirock.
This is an attack boosted, helping hand boosted, smacks Steel Spike. Absolutely massive damage, and is going to just take that Regirock out before it gets the opportunity to do anything here.
Joe's team a little bit slower here. Obviously the Airstream boost helping on Gabby's side as well, and that being a little bit of a problem, being able to start dealing with some of those attacks. Hitmontop might be able to buy a turn potentially, but that's, I think, about all it's going to be able to do is just buy a little bit of time. Corviknight with the mirror armor, not going to be able to get caught by the Intimidate, so it's still in such a strong position.
Yeah, this is definitely not too favorable of a position on Joe's end here. I mean, not being able to really capitalize off of your max hurts, and this Corviknight was able to capitalize off of its max, so you're just at a disadvantage right from there. Gabby, though, looking to set up the Corviknight even further here, though the Hitmontop just looking to support the Landorus here to try and maybe pick a KO.
Yeah, I think there's going to be another turn of Corviknight doing exactly what it wants. Landorus, though, correctly calling an Earth Power, knowing about the Follow Me, or maybe just targeting the Indeedee to begin with, and does bring the Pokemon count a little bit closer at 2-2, and Corviknight weaving in another bulk up, just not even threatened, being able to set up for an even more perfect endgame.
I mean, yeah, there's still the screens out on the field. This Corviknight has the speed boost. It has, 2 attack boost now, 3 defense boost. Like, this Corviknight is just going to be such a force to be reckoned with here, and especially against these 2 Pokemon that have been slowed down. And, I mean, the Naganadel, if disrespected, can do something as well here, which it's actually not going to do anything, as the Air Slash is going to miss instead.
Yeah, no damage from the Air Slash. Naganadel felled in exchange, but it's still this Corviknight against just 2. It took out 3 last time, so there's no reason it shouldn't be able to tidy up 2 in this instance. Even with all of the boosts, it's not enough to drop the Landorus, but Landorus really doesn't have options against the Corviknight, and to be honest, Hitmontop doesn't either. We've seen Fake Out, we've seen Helping Hand and a Mach Punch, so really struggling here. Hitmontop just doing its best, saying, I can't get the knockout here, I'm going to need you to try, as Landorus throws up the Fly to avoid an attack for another turn.
Landorus gets to stick around once more, as Gabby did opt to Iron Head into that slot, so still a 2v1 here, but I mean, as soon as this Landorus comes down, it's going to be taken out. The Hitmontop going for a punch, getting a critical hit, but still really not doing too much damage.
This Landorus doesn't have better options either, and it's going to take Life Orb Recoil because Fly doesn't have the secondary effect. So Landorus knocks itself out, and nowhere near the knockout on Corviknight there. The Iron Head this time heading towards the Hitmontop, and that'll be enough. That's Corviknight again setting itself up perfectly and sweeping through the rest of the game. So even though Joe built a team using his namesake, it seems the purple team managed to overcome